Actions speak far louder than words, and we need to pay attention to them. They're the data that we need. Those are the circumstances. Not what they're saying to you, how they're behaving. Those are the circumstances. Hello, and welcome to the Complex Couples Podcast. I'm Heidi. I'm a couples therapist and relationship coach specializing in mixed orientation marriages and mixed gender identity relationships. Whether you're just discovering this reality or you've been on this journey for a long time, this is the space where your marriage matters, your values matter, and your choices matter. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Complex Couples Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I told you that today I would be discussing what to do if you've tried everything. You believe you are an attractive person, you like the behaviors that you're exhibiting, and your spouse still isn't attracted to you. I'm talking about this in terms of a partner who wants to stay. There may be other scenarios where your partner is telling you that they want to leave, and that's different. But this is when your spouse may be saying to you, hey, I really want to make this marriage work. And yet they're exhibiting behaviors that say they're not attracted to you, or they're telling you explicitly that they're not attracted to you. And you feel like you have behaved as an attractive person and you don't understand. So today I'd like to dive into that topic a little bit more and what might be present. So the first thing that I would be asking myself in this situation is, am I reliant on my spouse's validation to feel good about me in any way? So if I'm complaining and saying, what's their problem and why would they not want me? That is putting it in terms of something's wrong with them. And that may be true. There may be things that are wrong there, but it doesn't come from a position of curiosity. It comes more from a position of judgment. A way that I would switch that question around would be to ask myself instead is, given how things are, how do I want to show up here? Because there's something about that first question that's saying, I'm okay being with a person who's not attracted to me. And our spouse can map those things. And it's actually not that attractive because it's saying that I'm okay with that to some degree, at least in action. So one of the things to consider is, am I allowing choice here? Am I allowing space for choice, or am I trying to pressure my spouse to make a different choice? So that question that I just said, that is more about allowing them choice and making my choice in light of it. But if I'm pressuring choice and I'm trying to convince them, like, hey, why don't you want me? Come on, what is it about me? If I'm pressuring choice in that way, it's coming from a needy position and shows a lack of self-respect, which can contribute to feelings of attraction. So you really have to address, where am I not behaving in ways that really warrant respect? So instead of pressuring a choice, I can ask myself, okay, given the circumstances, how do I want to show up? Now, what are the circumstances? This is really important. You need to be able to look at the circumstances in your marriage. I had a client the other day who was really frustrated that her husband was kind of back and forth and waffling on a lot of things. And she was saying, he just needs to decide. He just needs to decide if he's going to choose me or if he's going to choose these other people in his life. And I looked at her and I asked her what she was waiting for, like what would determine that for her. And she said, well, he would tell me I'm done with affairs, or I want to have other relationships. And I just looked at her and I said, so it sounds like you're waiting for words. And my client fell apart because she realized what I was saying was his actions were already telling her what he wanted. Actions speak far louder than words, and we need to pay attention to them. They're the data that we need. Those are the circumstances. Not what they're saying to you, how they're behaving. Those are the circumstances. So there's a couple different scenarios here I want to look at, a couple different circumstances. So one is if your spouse is acting out with other men or women, depending on their sexuality, and they're telling you that they want to stay. What are the actions telling you? They might be telling you that they're okay having sexual relations with other people and with you. And they might not be lying to you when they say they want to stay. Okay? They might want to have both things. And so you're going to have to look at, what do I want to do about that? They've mapped in me that that's okay with me. Somehow they've mapped that it's okay with me. Now you can be blaming, you can be yelling and screaming and telling them that that's not what you want, but your actions are telling them that you will tolerate it in some way. Okay? Different scenario, what if your spouse is looking at pornography and you've told them that that is something that really is appalling to you and you want no part of it and you don't want that to be a part of your marriage? And they're secretly looking at porn or doing other whatever it is that you guys have discussed and said that that should not be part of your marriage. What are they telling you if they're doing it anyway? They're telling you either they think you don't care about it that much or that they don't care about it that much, or both. And you have to determine how you want to behave in light of what they're telling you. Okay? So most of these issues come down to one specific thing, and that is a lack of courage. So it's a lack of courage to be telling you one thing, doing another. It could be a lack of courage about bringing their sexuality to you, their erotic mind to the relationship. For instance, pornography is a very easy out, meaning I don't have to reveal my sexual mind to anyone when I look at pornography. I can really keep it to myself, keep it hidden, and it's far less intimate. It's far less scary to reveal it there than maybe it is to reveal my sexual mind to a spouse, someone who can judge me for it and make determinations about if they want to engage with that or not. So there are reasons that people go to pornography that don't necessarily indicate whether or not you're a good sexual partner. It can be a lack of sexual integration, a lack of integrating their own sexual mind and being okay with it. Similarly with affairs, they might be really comfortable sharing that with another man, but they have a really hard time revealing that to a woman that really matters to them. So it doesn't necessarily mean you don't matter. It takes courage for sexual integration. And here's the hard part. You cannot control the level of courage they will engage in. You can only control how courageously you will approach sexuality and the other issues in your marriage. And it's going to take courage to do what you respect rather than what you think you need to do if you're going to save your marriage. Acting with that kind of courage is not easy. So, my question for you is, if you were acting courageously and you knew what you wanted, what would you be doing differently? Let's talk for a second about affairs. Sometimes when people are having affairs, it's interesting how the resolute partner, the partner who hasn't had an affair, the resolute partner is actually willing to put out more sexually. They are hoping that if they show up sexual enough that they will be able to save their partner from needing or seeking sexual interaction somewhere else. If you were to approach that more from a courageous standpoint, you would be asking yourself, am I really attracted to this? And if I am, what is that about? If you are, take a look at it. See what it is you find attractive about a man or a woman who is sleeping around with other people. But my guess is that most of you don't find it attractive. You're just thinking that if I do this, it might save our marriage. But the reality is it decreases your self-respect and only actually keeps promoting the idea that they can have both things. So a different way might to be more honest and open about how you will engage, given that they are choosing affairs with other men. If you're not ending the marriage, okay, but how are you going to engage differently? Are you going to still give them everything that they want in the marriage? Or are you going to determine what you are willing to offer in light of what is happening? So let's look at pornography for a second. If you're looking at that and you're saying, hey, I see that you're turning to this other source and I'm wanting you to be honest with me and upfront, and you're not, how am I going to engage with that? How am I going to engage in a way that I respect, that says this is something that really matters to me? Or am I going to change my view? I mean, sometimes we change our viewpoint. Sometimes we say, they're taking their erotic mind somewhere else because they're not mature enough to handle it here. I want to know they're dealing with it. How am I going to know? And how am I going to act in light of that? The last topic I want to talk about is suppression, because maybe your partner isn't acting out. Maybe they're not engaging their sexual mind elsewhere, but maybe they're really suppressing sexual desires and trying to, quote, be a good person, right? So we need to take a look at that too and how you would handle that. I think it's important at looking at reasons people may suppress. They may suppress because of religious messaging telling them that sex is bad, or that having sexual thoughts is bad, it's impure. There may be several reasons that your spouse feels that they cannot engage their erotic mind, that they've got to hide it, suppress it, not let it be seen, even to themselves, right? And the reality is that might be causing some of the desire issues in your marriage. So it's reasonable that you would want those addressed if you are interested in a sexual relationship. And you can decide how you want to approach that. But I think there's a couple of things that are important to understand here. And one is that there is a high desire and low desire partner in every relationship. The higher desire partner can be the one merely who wants sex a little more than the other. It doesn't have to be a big discrepancy, but generally there's a higher, well, not generally, always there is a higher desire and a lower desire partner, and that is normal. And the lower desire partner really determines how often couples have sex, because it takes two people to engage in sexual intercourse. So maybe your partner is low desire because they're more suppressing their sexuality, or they just don't want to engage in what it would take to integrate their sexuality. But let's talk about what you can do in those situations. So we talked about courage. And I think this is a place of equal courage, that you also need to be courageous. Just because your partner is suppressing does not mean you need to suppress. Often what happens is we turn our sexuality off in order to accommodate our partner. I'm going to give a little example of this. This is not necessarily sexual, but this is definitely how I exhibited this, so it might give you a better picture. For a long time, I would want to test my partner. I would want to see if he was into me by waiting for him to hold my hand or put his arm around me or give me a kiss. Any of those physical affection signs, I would kind of just wait and see, will he do it first? That was kind of my test for him. But in that, I was lacking courage, because the thing is, sometimes I felt affection for him that I honestly wanted to show to him, that I wanted to reveal, but I was doing this little game instead. So if I were more courageous, I did shift to more courage. I decided, you know what? I feel it. I feel affection for him right now, and it's genuine, and I want to show it. And I would choose how I wanted to show that. And I wouldn't wait anymore. I would just merely express. And I probably still do it a lot more than he does, but that's been okay with me, because that's who I want to be in my marriage. I don't want to be someone who suppresses, so I'm not going to show up that way. But a lot of times our dependency shows up when we are unwilling to express what we feel because we're worried it won't be reciprocated. So you can show what you feel, whether or not it's reciprocated. I hope that this is addressing some of the topics. Now, I'm mindful right now that it's not addressing all of them. I can already think of scenarios where there are exceptions to this, and I'm not dealing with all of that today. But I hope it gives you some ideas of things you can do differently. I'd like to end with a story of kind of where I was in the beginning of this versus where I am now. So when Daniel first came out, I remember asking him the question, do we need to open our marriage? Like, is that something we need to do for you to be sexually satisfied? And it's interesting to me looking back on that now, that I was willing to even ask that question without considering how I felt about an open marriage. I didn't really consider myself. I was so invested in saving our relationship that there was a part of me that was like, I'll do whatever it takes. I was very willing to let myself go in that, which quite frankly shows a lot of neediness. It's not a very attractive position. It seems like it would. It seems like doing whatever the other person wants would be attractive, but it's just not. It's not very solid. And something that really leads to attraction and desire is a solid sense of self. So, anyway, that was a question that I asked that illustrates kind of where I was. Another thing that I did was for a time period was I just closed myself off. Generally, I would not say I'm a very closed person. I'm pretty open and affectionate. But when I discovered this about my husband, and there was this fear that this might mean that my marriage could end at any moment. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to protect. I'm not going to feel anything. I'm just going to, numb myself, avoid feeling so that this is going to hurt less when it ends. But there are a lot of problems with that position. One is that, first of all, it wasn't authentic to me. Then it is definitely not who I am. But second of all, it increases my chances that my marriage is going to end because I'm not offering anything up. I'm determining that I'm not going to offer up if it could hurt later. So what I really had to do was get better at tolerating the idea of pain, tolerating the idea that, yes, my relationship might end, recognizing that, quite frankly, that's how everyone's marriage is. It's not just mine. Marriage is fragile. It can end, and one person can determine if it's going to end or not. So that is the nature of what you're entering into, and it is terrifying. And it becomes less scary. Well, it became less scary for me when I depended on my marriage less as a determinant of if I was valuable or not. So I recognize that it may end. Who did I want to be in it? How did I want to show up in ways that I respected? So that I would know that if it did end, I had done what I could. That was my goal. And as a result, I started thinking about what I wanted, what I would tolerate, how I would show up if certain things were there. And it changed the nature of our marriage. So this week, something that you can do is, first of all, notice what you're waiting for your spouse to decide. What are you looking to them to decide? And have they already given you the answer? What is the reality around this that you might be trying not to see? Notice what is already there, what is present. And then I'd like you to make a decision of how you would like to behave given that this is the reality. I hope that this helps you. I hope that that gives you some guidance. I'm really grateful that you joined me today. And if you have further questions, you can always email me, Heidi@complexcouplescoaching.com, or send me your comments and feedback. I always welcome them. If you're looking for more resources or coaching opportunities, you can go to my website, www.complexcouplescoaching.com. This is my work. This is my passion. I hope that you can take something away. I hope that you can be kind to yourself as you are trying to navigate this, that you can recognize and pick yourself back up when you make mistakes, when you fall back into old patterns. That is a normal part of progress. And I hope you will join me next time on the Complex Couples podcast.